A bird, when it flies, doesn't care about its size. And airplanes, even with their weight, can soar across the skies. From STEM to arts to sports, we have traveled far, even though they said we wouldn't make it. Do you know who we are?
मेरी काया के भेद कुछ अलग से हैं, ना है गलत ना है सही, कुदरत के इस इंतजाम का मैं हूँ खास तुम नहीं, मिल भी जाए अगर एक जन्म और फिर जी लूंगा मैं उसे 100 बार। आसमां के पार, 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 आसमां के पार।
Everyone is blessed, each differently than the rest, but we all have the zest to live life to the fullest. No matter our ability, we all can breathe in life in ways people can't imagine, though obstacles are rife. We may not have voices, but we are not unheard. Yes, we may seem trapped, but we are freer than birds. You may say we're cursed, but we're miracles in disguise. And you may try to put us down, but we will always rise.
कुछ सपने बुने आँखों ने, कुछ अपने चुने राहों ने, कुछ हसरतें बढ़ने लगी, कुछ चाहतें जगने लगी, मंजिलें रह गई खुद ब खुद पीछे और हम उड़ चले आसमां के पार, 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 आसमां के
Hello, hola, bonjour, vanakkam, sat sri akal, and a big heartfelt namaste to all the compassionate people on behalf of India Inclusion Foundation. I'm Neeraj George Baby, your MC for today, and it is my pleasure and honor to welcome you all to this event. We are here in this world for a purpose. We started the India Inclusion Foundation in 2012 with a purpose to work towards an inclusive world for people with disabilities in every aspect. We have had great speakers at the IIS Resilient Me on November 7th and IIS for Youth this morning. If you have missed watching these events, you can relive the show on our YouTube channel, India Inclusion Summit. The IIS Summit is an annual celebration, more of a festival, where both abled and differently abled come together to cheer, to immerse in the joy of inclusion, and to commit towards an inclusive India. The next hours are dedicated to celebrating the achievements of people with disabilities, to cheering for unsung heroes, and for paying our deepest gratitude to all the caregivers who dedicated their time, energy, and heart into nurturing the best in everyone. Art is at the heart of IIS. Each year, we have a ritual of opening the summit by unveiling a painting created by an artist who's passionate about inclusion. Let us start IIS Celebrations 2020 by this ritual.
Niyaz Hussain is an artist who highlights social issues through his paintings. In this painting, he tries to show different visible and invisible challenges a person has in his life by portraying the standing figure of a person who is bald, has a round belly, wears an eye patch, holds a cane, and has braces on both legs. The second person on the left is the face of society, who sees such people differently. If you believe that everyone is good at something, then you can fly higher in life, leaving all prejudices behind. Everyone is good at something.
This masterpiece is the brainchild of Niaz Hussain from Delhi, an AFI fellow from 2019. In this painting, Niaz expresses both the obstacles created by the society and the power of self-belief that lies within, which helps you climb the ladder of success and shine. The painting has different textures to touch and feel the various strong emotions that one goes through. Birds with different colors represent the freedom, highlighting that birds of different feathers can flock together. As Albert Einstein once said, imagination is everything. It is the preview of life's coming attractions. Movies can be a compelling medium to share a convincing message to a large set of audiences. An American director, producer, and actor, Doug Rowland, has used this medium to convey a message of inclusion through his movie, The Feeling Through Experience. It has a compelling story with a unique actor playing the lead role. Now, I invite our opening speaker, Mr. Doug Rowland, on stage. Once again, here's my warm welcome to all of you to the IIS 2020 celebrations.
Hello everyone! It's such an honor to be here on this virtual stage. A huge thank you to the India Inclusion Summit for continuing to do this amazing event, even during these very unusual times. My name is Doug Rowland. I'm a social impact filmmaker. I made the first film to star a deafblind actor, and I want to tell you a little bit today about what I've learned along my journey. I'm going to take you back 9 years. We're in New York City. I was coming home late one night in the East Village, and I saw a man standing alone on a street corner holding a sign that said, "I'm deaf and blind and need help crossing the street." I remember my first thought being when I saw him, I thought to myself, wow, this is the first deafblind person I've ever met, and I've hardly ever even thought about this community. I tapped him, he pulled out a notepad and wrote that he needed a bus stop nearby. I took him over there and realized that another bus wasn't coming for over an hour. So I wanted to sit and wait with him, but I didn't know how to communicate with him. So I just kind of instinctively took his hand and started tracing one letter at a time on his palm. It worked, he understood me. And over the next hour, we had a whole conversation that way of him writing to me in his notepad, me writing back one letter at a time on his palm. And, you know, I got to know this man, Artemio, as this charismatic, funny, warm-hearted guy who I felt like I had really made a connection with. To the point where when his bus came, we were giving each other a big hug goodbye, and I started tearing up a little bit, thinking I'm gonna miss my new friend who I'm never gonna see again. And this experience stayed with me for a really long time. And in looking back on it, I think the most resonant aspect of this experience was that in one interaction, I had gone from seeing this man Artemio as his disability to seeing him as a friend. And it was a real light bulb moment for me. And it was actually the inspiration behind the film Feeling Through that I ended up creating that was heavily inspired by this encounter. And it was a film that I wrote shortly after this encounter, but it lived on my computer for many years because I didn't feel like I was quite ready to make it yet. But years later, when I got that gut feeling that now is the time, I instinctively knew that I wanted to make it alongside the community. And I ended up reaching out to and ultimately partnering with the Helen Keller National Center to make it. And what was so great about working with them is that, I live in LA, they're based in New York and Long Island, and I was routinely traveling to their headquarters in Port Washington, Long Island, to get to meet with a lot of people in the deafblind community, get to meet with a lot of the staff that worked there, that worked with the community every day, and really get this masterclass education in the community, but moreover, form a really personal relationship with the community myself. But it was also great to work with the Helen Keller National Center because I knew from the start of this process that I wanted to cast a deafblind actor, and they helped me do that. So they ended up reaching out to deafblind people all across the country as possible actors for this role named Artie, who is obviously very inspired by Artemio. And funny story about that is that Robert Tarango, who we ended up casting, was not on our initial casting list. He actually worked in the cafeteria at Helen Keller National Center, and we were midway through one of our days of casting one day. We had a break in the schedule, and someone in the room goes, "Hey, what about Robert?" So before Robert knows it, he's being pulled out of the kitchen and walking into this audition room for a film that he doesn't know exists. And it was one of those moments where the moment he walked in, he had this light and this charisma that I just instantly knew he was our guy. So now we have our deafblind actor. And what was, again, great about working with HKNC is that they provided an amazing interpreting team to facilitate communication between Robert and I throughout the process. And you know, during this process, we found out that Robert is the first deafblind actor ever to star in a film. And it's not just the deafblind community, but many disability communities that are extremely underrepresented in film and TV. Something like less than 5% of the roles that we see in film and TV shows are characters that are portrayed with having a disability. And of that percentage, so few are played by actors with disabilities. And I think one of the reasons that's the case is because I think there's a lot of people who assume, oh, it's just not going to be worth the trouble to go and get an actor with a disability. It's just too much trouble. But accommodations are made for actors all the time. So why not make accommodations for actors with disabilities? And it was really, not only was it quite simple once we had an interpreting team, but the film would not be what it is without Robert, without someone who has lived that experience of being a deafblind person and hearing directly from his voice and him being able to share that in an authentic way that really couldn't be reproduced in any other way. What was really amazing about making the film was we also documented the whole process. So we were simultaneously shooting this documentary where we were following the process of casting and working with Robert, but we were also following along with our year-long search to track down Artemio, the man who had inspired all of this. So that by the time it came to exhibit the film, we were exhibiting it as this 3-part fully accessible screening event called the Feeling Through Experience, which included part 1, Feeling Through, the first film to star a deafblind actor, Robert Tarango. Part 2, our supporting documentary, Connecting the Dots, which follows working with Robert and also our search for Artemio. And part 3 was this panel discussion and Q&A with the deafblind community, which is always different wherever we're screening the film, so that we also have an opportunity to highlight so many other great voices in the deafblind community and have our audiences get to hear directly from the community. So before I say anything else, let's take a quick look at the trailer.
On Long Island, breaking barriers in the film industry. He's believed to be the first blind and deaf man cast in a leading role.
It doesn't matter if I'm deaf and legally blind. I still felt like I could do it.
The Helen Keller National Center says its goal this year is to provide accessibility for all.
You're now a part of the community.
I'm going to make it required viewing for my students. It's so important. Thank you so much.
So as you can see from that trailer, you get to see some moments of the film and some of the impact we've had on audiences, but you also get to see some clips of what a fully accessible screening looks like. And let me walk through the elements of accessibility that we brought to this screening event, because you might not be familiar with some of them. So first and foremost, we had open captions on the screen. So you might be familiar with closed captions that you can kind of bring up and down from a video when you're watching it, on your computer or on TV. But we had open captions that were burned into the image, and we made them larger than normal so that someone who's deaf or hard of hearing and might also have some vision loss could follow along easier. We also had something called audio description, and that's something that I actually didn't know about prior to making this film. But audio description is a narrative track describing everything that's happening visually on the screen. So you can imagine that if you are blind or low vision, anything that's not dialogue, you might have trouble following along with. So this is a narrative track that describes all the action that's happening on the screen so that you can follow along and experience the whole story. And we also had as many as 50 interpreters and support staff at a single screening to provide that one-to-one accessibility. So that meant tactile interpreters for people who are deaf-blind and communicate tactily. We had stage interpreters for deaf and hard of hearing participants, and some accessibility elements to and from the theater. And we knew right off the bat it was so important to make this experience accessible to the very community that was at the heart of it. But I think that understanding was really drilled home to me at our very first screening, our premiere of the Feeling Through experience in North Carolina, when we got to part 3, the panel discussion and Q&A, and a man who's deafblind in the audience stood up and he said, first and foremost, I really love that film. It was so moving, and I love the representation of the deafblind community in this story. But moreover, I really loved that it was made accessible for me. And he continued and said, a lot of times people think because I'm deafblind, I wouldn't care to go to the movies. But I love going to the movies. I love coming and experiencing a live event. I just never have the opportunity to do so because things aren't made accessible for me. So I think it was in that moment, one of the first people to speak at our very first screening really drilled home in a much deeper way for me why it was so important to provide this accessibility and why it's important for more people to do so in more spaces. It makes me think of the often said statement that accessibility is for everyone. And to me, that's a really multi-layered statement. But I think at the highest level, what it means to me is that in a world where we all have access to the things that we want and need, each one of us individually is better off. And therefore, we're all better off as a society. But moreover, it has a really practical application too, in the sense that a lot of the innovations that are made to accommodate people with disabilities are innovations that people without disabilities use all the time, whether it be an elevator or the ability on your smartphone to change the size and look of text. These are things that everyone uses, whether you identify as having a disability or not. So it's a multi-layered thing. And moreover than the accessibility at the Feeling Through experience, we were bringing communities together that wouldn't normally have a shared experience. And that was very much inspired by my meeting with Artemio 9 years ago, where as a full-grown adult, I'm realizing that I'm interacting with and learning from someone who's deafblind for the very first time in my life. And I thought, how could we create experiences where more people like me, who knew very little of the deafblind community and maybe didn't have any opportunity to interact with that community, could enjoy an experience side by side and have this collective experience? Because I think at the end of the day, there's no better way to connect with a person or a community that you don't know that well than having a shared experience with them and having a space where you can dialogue with them and ask questions and really learn from each other. And we found that not only was this a really amazing experience for people who are deafblind to have this story that represented them on the screen, but we heard from so many people who went into this experience having never met anyone who was deafblind, who knew nothing of the community, coming out saying that it was life-changing for them, that they now felt like they had a really heartfelt connection to this community. And I knew none of this 9 years ago prior to meeting Artemio. I was gifted with this chance encounter with him that led to this story that we've been able to share with a lot of people. But I've learned along the way that it's so important for everyone to understand accessibility and inclusion, even if it's not something that you feel like necessarily affects you on a moment-to-moment basis. It actually does. And your awareness of it helps make the world better for everyone. And I like to leave this with some sort of like actionable thing that you can do, watching this, maybe, wanting to further your understanding of what I've been able to share today. And for me, the one thing that comes to mind the most is something that I said to the Helen Keller National Center during our very first meeting. I said to them, I have a film that includes a deafblind character that I want to be played by a deafblind actor, but it's not a film about deafblindness. It's a film about human connection, and more specifically, the power of human connection despite our differences. And if there's one thing that I've learned over the course of the last 9 years, it's something really simple, and it's that people who are deafblind and people with disabilities are people just like anyone else. And I know that sounds like incredibly simplistic, but to be honest, for me, that was something that I only understood intellectually before really engaging with the community, connecting with the community, having a lot of people who I call close friends of mine who are in the deafblind community now and other parts of the disability community. And so if there's one thing that I ask of you today, and again, many of you already know this, but for those who maybe this is kind of an aha moment for you, like it was for me 9 years ago, is to really, anytime that you are engaging with or thinking about the disability community, understand first and foremost that they're people like anyone else, and engage from that space. Because if you do that, honestly, you're going to be putting your best foot forward, and you're going to be interacting in a way and connecting with the community in the most important way. And that's something that really you can take home and hopefully share with some, that understanding with someone else today would be also another actionable item that I could give you to do. But once again, it's really an honor to speak here at the India Inclusion Summit, and it's an honor to get to address all of you today. Thank you so much, and to a successful India Inclusion Summit 2020.
Thank you, Doug, for making such an amazing movie. It is truly a story of human connections. It is our pleasure to screen this movie exclusively on IIS website. Please do visit www.indiainclusionsummit.com and watch this movie. It's now time for me to share my story. I'm Neeraj George Baby from Alua, Kerala, happily working as an assistant at the Office of Advocate General since 2012. I've had an adventurous life so far, as deep as an ocean's dive and as high as a mountain's climb. As a child, I loved playing cricket and badminton with friends. The first plummet came in when I was 9 and was playing cricket with my friends. I felt severe pain in my knee and fell down. I complained about it to my parents, and they took me to a doctor. Post an MRI and CT scan, I was diagnosed with a small lump on my left upper tibia. Later on, a biopsy revealed that I was suffering from osteosarcoma or bone tumor. Treatment was initiated. I underwent chemotherapy, but unfortunately, the tumor grew in size and my left limb had to be amputated. Thus, I came into the world of the differently abled at the age of 9. It was my zest for life that provided me with the courage and determination to fight cancer and move on. That was a milestone in my life and a whole new world of inclusion to explore. Immediately after my surgery, I started using crutches or Baisakhi as it is known in Hindi. Well, I feared getting back to school on crutches and facing my friends at school. I was fondly surprised and was welcomed with good wishes by the principal in the school assembly. It remains one of my first and the best memories about inclusion. I was the only differently abled student in my school. The teachers made sure that my friends understood my condition. My friends made it a point to include me in various co-curricular activities at school, like singing, playing basketball, and cricket. Back in the 90s, Doordarshan was the only source of entertainment I used to watch, the badminton championships, and the pace of the game attracted me. that made me want to play the game. I was determined not to restrict myself to the four walls at home. I started playing the game with friends using a single crutch. The support of my family, friends, and teachers helped me to gradually come back to a normal life, and by the time I finished school, I was a confident young boy. At college, I took badminton a bit more seriously. I tried to channelize my energy into playing badminton and got professional training and improved my skills. That was a turning point for me, as badminton turned from a passion to a profession, and I started dreaming of representing my country in the game. In 2007, during the final year of my graduation, I got an opportunity to participate in the Open National Championship held in Orissa, where I was placed as a runner up in the men's doubles category. Later on, I won national and international medals for the country, and today I am an internationally reputed para badminton player. And I have won a bronze at the Israel Open Badminton in 2010, a gold at the second French International Para Badminton Tournament, and a bronze in men's singles and doubles in the third Spanish International Para Badminton Tournament, and have represented in many international tournaments. And presently, I am involved in mentoring those para players who are passionate about the badminton to come forward and play badminton, and on to the next level. Well, my other passion in life is to be closer to nature, and trekking and adventure sports give me a great satisfaction also. Mount Kilimanjaro, if you have heard, in Tanzania is the highest peak in the African continent, and it is not an easy trek for anybody, and to do it on crutches is an added advantage and an adventure in itself. I feel elated to share that Mount Kilimanjaro trek was my recent trek. I chased my dreams, summited the Uhuru Peak at 19,341 feet. While I think about the trek, one instance that I really remember is that towards the end of the trek, I had my guide, with me, and I said, I can't go again. That's it. I'm really tired. I'm burned out. At that time, what he said to me is that, Neeraj, we believe in you, and you have believed in us and reached this point. So we believe in you, and you can do it. And with that kind of motivation, I finished. I summited the Uhuru Peak. I've always followed certain principles in life. I would like to share with you all today. Always see yourself in others, to think empathetically and understand what you are here in this world for a purpose, to make our life meaningful for others and impart the knowledge that we have imbibed within. As Gautam Buddha has said, do not look a sanctuary in anyone except yourself. Igniting others in thoughts and sharing the same has always been a passion for me, and I'm following that path. Well, I've also named myself as Crutch Trekker, a differently abled who treks on crutch, and have inspired many with my signature pose, Crutch Piece. I hope it will be a reflection to others like me who want to summit those peaks and cross all those barriers to be resilient. I encourage all those differently abled to come forward and not to restrict ourselves and unleash those talents to show the world that we are special. Catch me on www.crutchtrekker.com or find me on social media as Neeraj George. Thank you once again. The Art for Inclusion is an initiative to highlight the abilities of artists with special needs. We receive lots of applications for the AFI Fellowship. The applications are screened and evaluated by a jury team. The jury team consists of Mr. Vilas Naik, world-renowned speed painter and the chairman for AFI, Mr. Abhishek Podar, founder of Museum of Arts and Photography, Mr. Sriram Jagannathan, graphic novelist, author Mai, and co-author Grit, and Ms. Anu Jain, Fine Artist, AFI Fellow 2019. A total of 9 artists were selected this year for the AFI Fellowship. These artists use art to communicate their thoughts, emotions, and life experiences. By sharing their artwork with the world, we offer an opportunity for everyone to experience the world through their art. We also provide a platform for artists to celebrate, connect, and catalyze with renowned institutions and mentors. We will learn about the 9 artists throughout the event. Here are our first artists, Ayush Bambani and Arun Srinivasan.
Hi, my name is Ayush Pamani. I'm a student in Kanagaskop, Bangalore.
Ayush Bambani is an artist who prefers to work with rotring pens on textured paper and is a trainee at Sense Kaleidoscopes, an academy for autism and Asperger's syndrome in Bangalore. He is not one for words, but rather of colors and waves, shapes and corners, light and dark. He naturally gravitated towards art and he is highly sensorial and visual. His work is full of painstakingly crafted detail and he specializes in the Zentangle form of art. This art form appeals to his sense of form and structure. He can spend hours on his work, but he is equally interested in music, movies, food, video games, and everything else a young adult would enjoy. His artworks have been exhibited at various exhibitions both nationally and internationally.
Hi, my name is Arun Srinivasan. I reside in New Delhi. I am a painter and I have been painting since 6 years. I am also a member of Multiple Sclerosis Society of India, Delhi chapter. Nature captivates me a lot. I am a landscape artist and I have been painting a lot of natural beauties around me. The purpose of my painting is to capture the vibrant colors of the nature through my strokes. And my aim as an artist is to reach the peak of the art world.
Dan Habib is an American documentary film director, producer, photojournalist, and cinematographer. His award-winning documentary film, including Samuel, chronicles the Habib family's effort to include Samuel in every facet of their lives. The film has been screened at national conferences and independent theaters across the United States, featured on shows, and has won many prestigious awards. Welcome to IIS celebrations, Dan.
Hello, everyone. It's a great honor to be with you here for the India Inclusion Summit. I've been looking forward to this, and it's a great joy for me to be with you. I want to start by just asking each of you to think about your own school experience, whether you're still in school or whether it's been many years ago. Think back to a classroom from your childhood. Or from your school now, and look around that classroom and let me know if you see or think about whether you see students with and without disabilities working together, collaborating, and learning together. I'm going to guess that many of you saw no students with disabilities in your class, and that's pretty much the way I grew up as well. When I was young, here in preschool, I never thought about kids with disabilities because I barely saw any kids with disabilities. Until I saw a young boy, a friend of mine, who had a difference. And what was unusual about this boy, if you can see in the picture, was he wore a headband around his ears. And at the time, that felt like a really big difference. He was the boy with the headband. But looking back now, that seems like such a minor difference. I remember coming home and asking my mother one day, why does that boy wear the headband all day? And she said, well, he's had some ear surgeries and he needs to protect his ear. And I think back to that now and think, that was the boy with the headband. That was such a difference. But in reality, that is such a small difference now that I look back at it. And that's because of my own life experience. When I look back now, almost 20 years, when my wife was pregnant with our second child, we had Isaiah, a 3-year-old who was running all over the beach, very active, talking, energetic. And we were looking forward to having that second child and envisioning the family that we might have, the adventures we would have together, hiking and biking. And then one day, Samuel was born. A beautiful child. We had a beautiful birth. And for those first few months, we were exhausted, but we were exhilarated, happy, until a few months into his life, and we started noticing he wasn't developing in the same way as his brother. He wasn't rolling over. He wasn't trying to sit up. He wasn't talking. And we started getting a little concerned. So we called the doctor, and the doctor said, well, let's have him checked out by a physical therapist and a speech therapist. And they said, just to be sure, why don't we have him seen by a neurologist? And at about 6 months old, the neurologist started doing all these samples of Samuel's blood, his skin, his urine, all these samples going all over the world to analyze why wasn't Samuel developing in a typical way. And at that point, as a parent, you're just so worried, and you're thinking every day, I just want to get that news from the doctor that everything's going to be okay. He just needs that one pill and everything will be fine. The doctor sent skin samples and blood samples all over the world. And after about a year into Samuel's life, he came back and told us that it looks like Samuel has an underlying genetic disorder that is called cerebral palsy. And you can see now in those fists balled up, that was the early sign of cerebral palsy. So we went from this place of just joy and excitement to a place that was really just full of uncertainty. And that's a tough place to live in uncertainty, of not knowing, whether Samuel's health was going to take a turn for the worse, how long he might live. How could he go to school when he can't hold a pencil? How can he have friends when he can't just run outside and play with his friends? Just test after test after test and concern after concern. And we realized we can't live in this place of fear and concern. We have to find a better way. So we have to find a vision for Samuel's future. My wife was fortunate to go through family leadership training, and she was able to come to this idea that, kids with disabilities can be included in school. They can be included in community. They can take part in every aspect of our lives. And she said, Dan, you have to do this same training. We have to be on the same page as parents and form this vision for Samuel. So I went ahead and did that training. And what we both came to was that our vision for Samuel would be that he would feel like he belonged. He would feel like he belonged in every aspect of our lives, in our family, in our extended family, in our neighborhood, in our community, and most certainly his own elementary school right down the road from our house. We just couldn't imagine how Samuel could ever feel like he truly belonged if he didn't have a place of belonging in his own school. So Samuel, thankfully, always felt like he belonged. He was a charmer. He would just lean over to the girl next to him in preschool, flash those eyelashes, and he definitely felt like he belonged in preschool. As he got older and he went into elementary school, first grade, second grade, he felt like he belonged with his friends. He was supported, sometimes quite literally, like for this group photo, along with his friends in elementary school. When he got interested in things like theater, he felt like he belonged on that stage in a production of Guys and Dolls here at his elementary school. And he used a communication device to start communicating and saying his lines. And nobody gave it a second notice because they had been with him in school all day long, and they knew that that's just the way that Samuel took part in the world. As he got even older, he wanted to play sports. So he couldn't run the first baseline in baseball, but he could use his adaptive bike with a little help from his coach to get up the first baseline. Sometimes he was safe, sometimes he was out. He was just playing the game with his friends, but he felt like he belonged. That sense of belonging has continued through his life, thankfully, because he's worked hard to advocate for himself, and we've worked hard to advocate for his inclusion in all aspects of society. And he and his brother, Isaiah, are now 24 and 20 years old and still very, very close. And in his upper levels of school, he started participating in high school sports. And here in the United States, actually it's worldwide, a program through the Special Olympics called Unified Sports, in which kids with and without disabilities compete against other school teams of kids with and without disabilities. So he felt like he belonged on that soccer field. As he got even older and he started taking part in more school activities, he joined a group called the Be the Change Club here in New Hampshire where we live, we've had a tremendous amount of refugee resettlement from all over the world, from Syria, the former Yugoslavia, Iraq, Bhutan, and they've come and settled into our community, many people from Africa as well. And Samuel wanted to be part of that welcoming spirit in our community. So he joined the Be the Change Club, and he felt like he belonged while he was trying to help other people felt like they belonged. He got involved in the TV station, and he started doing a sports broadcast every morning for the entire school of 2,000 kids. They got to know him that way. And then most recently, he started working with me and with other people on film projects. Here, there's the legendary disability rights advocate, Judy Heumann. We went down to Washington, D.C. and did filming with Judy. And so now he feels like he belongs professionally, and he's got a job making films that he loves. Now, you might think that Samuel, doesn't see himself in a relationship or with a girlfriend. Well, that's not true. He very much wants to get married and have kids someday, and he has great role models for that. And here you see him with his close friend Anita at the high school prom. And then just days later, you'll see that Samuel was graduating from high school, and getting his diploma with a regular diploma, which of course set him up to achieve his dream to go to college. He's always thought of himself as somebody that would go to college like his brother, like his friends. And now I'm thankful to say that Samuel is a college student, working towards a 2-year associate's degree here in New Hampshire, sometimes bringing his service dog, Proton, along into class. So Samuel feels like he belongs in every aspect of society. And of course, I'm very proud of Samuel and who he is, but the reality is that Samuel is representative of the research that we have in this country about inclusion. And when I say this country, I actually talking about the United States, but this is also validated by worldwide studies that says that kids with disabilities who are included in regular education classes end up having better communication skills, higher academic achievement, wider social networks, fewer behavior problems, more opportunities for higher education, and meaningful employment as adults. So Samuel's actually representative of the research, but unfortunately the research also shows tremendous segregation in this country and worldwide. One stat from the United States says that 56% of kids with intellectual disabilities are spending the majority of their day segregated in separate classrooms away from their typical peers. They are segregated systemically. So why do we segregate kids with disabilities in our society and in our world when we know that is not going to generate the most positive outcomes for them? Well, I have a couple theories on this. I think it's not just about Samuel when I have to think about this theory. I think it's actually more broadly about making the case that inclusion and inclusive education benefits all kids, kids with and without disabilities. And I'll just share briefly a great study by a researcher at Vanderbilt University, Eric Carter, who studied different groupings of kids preparing for a test. In one group, there were kids with and without disabilities preparing for the test. In another group, it was just kids without disabilities. So one group was very uniform or monolithic, just kids without disabilities. The other group was a mixed group. And they found that the kids without disabilities in the mixed group were actually achieving 15 points higher on their exams. And they found that was because the kids were more engaged in the curriculum. They were co-teaching and working with their students, their peers with disabilities, to try and explain the material. They were more engaged in the curriculum. It was a more vibrant discussion. It was a better learning environment for the kids without disabilities to be in that diverse environment. So they were scoring better on their tests because they were more engaged in the curriculum. And there's actually been no studies to suggest that students without disabilities who are learning in inclusive classrooms have any shortcomings in their academic experience. But there's also the whole social and emotional part of going through school. I think part of it is academic, but part of it is becoming the full person that you're going to be later in life. And I can think of no better example of that than an experience that Samuel had with two of his friends, Jacob and Fletcher, going to a community a few hundred miles from here called Cooperstown, New York. It's where the Baseball Hall of Fame, the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame, is located here in the United States. So we had a great time going through the museum and seeing the exhibits in the museum. And then we went out to the community. And if you look at this picture, you'll see that there was a really big obstacle to getting into stores and restaurants in the community. Every single store on this block had a little step about this big. And when you use a wheelchair, especially a power wheelchair, that step is like a wall. You cannot get into that store. So the kids were really upset that they and their friend Samuel, it took them 45 minutes just to find a place to have lunch in this community. So when they got back, they decided to write a letter. And that letter said things like, "We are very mad because almost all of the stores in downtown Cooperstown are not accessible to someone in a wheelchair. We had $100 to spend, and we had a rule. If Samuel couldn't get into the store, then none of us would buy anything from it. We hope that this letter will change downtown Cooperstown before anyone else has to struggle with what we did." And they sent the letter to the City Chamber of Commerce, the business organization, and all the newspapers, and it got published. And a few weeks later, I got a call from the city saying, "Oh, it's so great that your son and his friends wrote this letter. What can we do to make downtown Cooperstown more accessible to people in wheelchairs?" And I'm thinking, ramps? Ever heard of ramps? They've been around since the pyramids. There's got to be a way to build ramps. But I'm also thinking, why are you calling me hundreds of miles away? Don't you have in your own community people who use wheelchairs, architects, urban planners? Anyway, the great end of this story is that a couple years later, a friend of mine who has family in Cooperstown went back into town and found that they had rebuilt downtown Cooperstown and made all the streets and stores accessible. And it was just absolutely thrilling to think that maybe that letter had a little impact. They may have been planning this for a while. Maybe the letter didn't do so much. But think about the lesson that it taught Samuel and Jacob and Fletcher about human rights, about civil rights, about standing up for a friend, about the fact that everyone needs to feel like they belong in our society. That is the powerful lesson they learned, which they would have never learned if Samuel hadn't been their friend, if they hadn't grown up with Samuel and taken this trip with Samuel. Those are the kind of life lessons around civil rights and human rights that you don't learn unless you grow up in a diverse environment. So certainly it's about Samuel. Certainly it's about, kids without disabilities and his friends, but it's also about our future as a world, as a society. It's about our future sons and daughters. It's about future cousins and grandchildren and nephews and nieces. What kind of world do we want them to grow up in? I would maintain that I want them to grow up in a world where disability is seen as a normal part of the world, where disability is seen as part of our diversity that we should embrace. And I don't think you can learn that lesson unless you experience that diversity from a very young age. So finally, I just want to tell one quick story from Samuel when he was in elementary school. He was in a wonderful classroom in elementary school, and it was a multi-age classroom. There were kids who were 5, 6, 7, 8, all studying together in this classroom. And Samuel, with his teacher, Barbara O'Brien, who you see on the left side of this photo, Samuel was with his teacher for 3 straight years. And the students he was alongside of in the classroom were with him for 3 straight years. And so one day when a little child came from another country, from Africa, and came to this classroom, knowing no English language, knowing nothing about American culture or customs, all the kids in the classroom showed incredible empathy and patience and love and support. And they were very innovative in the way that they communicated with this child. And they showed such, leadership and teamwork and creativity in finding a way to make this child feel successful. Those are the skills they developed. And Ms. O'Brien said to me, where they learned those skills? They learned them from Samuel. So when you think about those skills that I just mentioned, creativity, communication, innovation, collaboration, right? Empathy, patience. Those are skills that not only are great growing up with, those are the kind of skills that employers are looking for. Those are the kind of skills that will launch you into the world. These are the skills that Samuel taught these children, and these are the skills that Samuel continues to teach me every day. Thank you so much for having me. It's been an honor, and enjoy the rest of the India Inclusion Summit.
அனைவருக்கும் வணக்கம். என் பெயர் சுசீலா கந்தசாமி, சேலம் மாவட்டம், தமிழ்நாடு. நான் ஒரு ஓவியர். IIS நிகழ்ச்சி கலந்து கொண்டது எனக்கு மிகவும் மகிழ்ச்சியாக இருந்தது. நான் மிகவும் ஏழ்மையான குடும்பத்தில் சேர்ந்தவன். எனது தந்தை நெசவு கூலி தொழிலாளி. என் தாய் எங்களையும் எங்கள் வீட்டையும் கவனித்துக் கொள்கிறார். எனக்கு ஒரு சகோதரி உண்டு. எனக்கு 8 வயசுலேருந்து நடக்க முடியாது போனதால் அம்மா ஸ்கூலுக்கு என்னைய கூட்டிகிட்டு போவாங்க. ஸ்கூலில் ஒரு டீச்சர் எனக்கு போர்டில் சொல்லிக் கொடுக்கும் போது எனக்கு ஓவியத்தில் ஆர்வம் வந்தது. அதில் எங்கள் அப்பா அம்மா என்னை பார்த்துட்டு ஸ்கெட்சு, பேனா எல்லாம் எனக்கு வாங்கி தந்தாங்க. கிட்டத்தட்ட 2000 படங்கள் வரைந்து வச்சிருக்கிறேன். விடாமுயற்சியால் 10 கேன்வாஸ் ஓவியம் வரைந்து வைத்துள்ளேன். அதில் சிறப்பாக அமைந்து இருந்தது கருவறை ஓவியம். இந்த வருடம் என்னை ஐஏஎஸ் நிகழ்ச்சியில் கலந்து கொண்டது எனக்கு மிகவும் மகிழ்ச்சியா இருந்தது.
My name is Nishchajan. I'm a student of Step by Step. I study in class 9. I'm 17 years old and I love art. What made me choose art is that I find it calm and soothing. I paint different kinds of characters and all things that I like to draw in what I want or what I want to paint. I like watercolor the most. That is the medium that I like. My ultimate goal in life is I want to draw what I want and I want to paint what I want and to become an artist.
Well said, Dan. You learn so much more if you grow in a diverse environment. We should aim for a world where disability is seen as a part of diversity that we should embrace. Thank you for that message. It was also very heartwarming to hear the stories of our AFI artists Sushila Kandaswamy and Nishtay Jain. I now welcome you to a musical performance by Sahana Niran, a child prodigy, artist and musician. She started giving performances when she was 4 years old and now she is just 10. She can play 2 songs on 2 different keyboards at the same time. Let me not spoil the surprise. Check out the surprise package yourself. Over to you, Sahana.
Hi, I'm Sahana. Now I'm going to play the IPL music in keyboard. Thank you. Now I'm going to play the Jyoti LA song with keyboard and melodica together. Thank you. Now I'm going to play the Jai Ho song in 2 keyboards.
Oh my god, Sahana, rocking, fantabulous. You have set the stage on fire. You are magical. At just 10 years of age, your achievements in the field of music is astonishing. Wish you a great career ahead in music. Today, I have the privilege to host a director, founder of Curly Street, and an award winning documentary filmmaker based in Bangalore, Pavitra Chalam. She has directed over 200 movies in the last 15 years. Her thesis, Anamika Her Glorious Past, at the New York Film Academy received critical acclaim in festivals across the world. She won the Ability Media International Award in London for Best Film for Khushbu, a film about children with complex needs. She was awarded the Asia Pacific Award for Outstanding New Documentary Talent for Indelible, the story of 7 people with Down syndrome living in India. She was also honored by the Government of India in 2016 as one of 25 women achievers or ambassadors for social change. In January 2019, Women in Film, Los Angeles, she received a grant for Rooting for Runa, which is also on Netflix. Welcome to IIS Celebrations, Pavitra. What drives you to focus on movies that highlight issues of social importance?
Thank you so much. It's such an honor to be here today. I wish I could be there in person, and I wish I could meet everyone, and I know that day will come soon. I think I've always believed in emotional and candid storytelling, and through every single one of the films that we make at Curly Street, the aim has always been for people to watch the film, pause for a moment and think to themselves, how can we be a part of this? How can we contribute? What difference can we make? And I think the aim of our films is to try and make people negotiate life as more responsible and caring individuals. And our mission is really, to cut through time and space and go beyond, right to where the audience is and go beyond their reality and what's happening in their own lives and nudge that humanity within. And cinema has this unique ability to take hard facts and cold information and transform it into the poetry of survival. And that in itself is universally relatable. And I think that is what we want to do. And if we can do that, then true and positive change can begin there.
You could address these issues through commercial movies too. Why did you choose to be a documentary filmmaker?
I think to me, truth is very intimate and real stories are fascinating and it is, it is also about conflicts and it is about contradictions, but it is also about an understanding of the human connection and the human bond and the human being. And to me, I find that deeply, deeply moving. And it is that visceral connection of, being in a situation that's real and being with people and watching a real moment unfold. To me, that's unmatched. And I think that's why I'm so deeply bound to documentaries.
Wish we can have more such directors who think like you. You have made many movies covering various disabilities. Khushbu, Indelible, Rooting for Runa. What is your journey on disabilities?
I think growing up, I very rarely encountered someone with a disability. And as I've gone on in my life and in my career, I realized that a lot of it is almost always invisible. And the first true interaction and encounter I had was in high school. I had the opportunity to volunteer at a school for special needs. And I think I was just completely blown away. I couldn't begin to imagine the extraordinary odds that they faced every single day and how a lot of these children were not empowered to go about basic daily living that we took for granted and that we continue to take for granted. And it is something that deeply irked me. I wanted to do something about it then, and I just didn't know at the time. I was too young. And many years later, film presented me with that answer. And I really believe that some of the curiosity that we can create using art can be the first step to an inclusive society. And with every film we've made and every person's story that we have had the honor to be a part of, we found ourselves drawn so deeply and so in awe of every single thing they faced every day. And I think all we really wanted to do is put forward our experience with each family and each person with complex needs, just the way we experienced it out to the world. And, a lot of people have asked us, once you're done with the film, what happens? Do you move on to your next? And we always say, we don't move on from a story, because every person becomes a part of our lives and us them. And now it's been over 15 years. And with every film we make, we take it into the next film because we've learned so much. And so we never move on, they remain a part of every single thing that we do and will continue to do.
Well, I watched Rooting for Runa on Netflix. It touched my heart very deeply. Can you please share your journey in the making of Rooting for Runa?
That's a hard question, but I will try. Rooting for Runa is about a little girl called Runa, who was born in a small village in Tripura, which is in the northeast of India. And she was born with this birth defect that caused her head to swell to an unprecedented size. And her parents, Abdul and Fatima, were told at the time nothing could be done. So they went home to their village and they waited for the inevitable. And one day, a photograph of Runa went viral. And it triggered this incredible chain of events. And she was finally flown to Delhi for treatment. And at the same time, I had just completed my first feature documentary, Indelible, which tells the stories of 7 people with Down syndrome. And we were just done, and I was going through my news feed, and I saw an article written by a friend that had broken a few hours ago. And in all the years that I have worked in complex needs, I had never encountered anything like this. And I think our thoughts at that moment was, how can this child have come to this stage? What is the family's plight? It was absolutely unbearable for us to, even try and imagine what was going on. And so we just decided we needed to be there, we needed to help her, we needed to tell the story, and we were on a flight to her. And the interesting thing that happened is, amidst all the despair, there was this joy that Runa had been discovered, that she had been given this chance at life. And that meant that she was a symbol of hope, and she continues to be a symbol of hope. Because if she got that chance, that means millions of children could have that very same chance. And in so many ways, birth defects is an invisible war. You don't see it, you very rarely hear of it. And suddenly, the whole world was talking about this little child. And it was so inspiring to see people from every corner, coming forward saying, how can we help? And this was back in April 2013. And of course, once the surgeries were successful and the world moved on, we remained. And we stayed with Runa and her family for 7 years. And what we experienced is now what I hope the world is experiencing through our film on Netflix. And our hope is that if someone can watch this film and it could lead to an understanding of what it means to be below the poverty line in India and live with a birth defect or a disability. And if that can create a better understanding of inclusion, if it can help with prevention, then I think that we really can begin a proper campaign for towards the fight for the better health of the Indian child.
Your response was an intense as the movie. Beyond movies, I believe you are also the co-creator of the Mum's Word. Can you share some insights on what it is and what you want to achieve through this?
My colleague Akshay Shankar and I are the co-creators of the Mum's Word. And the Mum's Word is a platform on Instagram that celebrates women who tell each other the truth about motherhood. Women who share what it truly means to be a mother, the mess the vulnerability, the fun, the joys, the small wins of motherhood. And I think our aim is to create an insightful and empathetic platform for women to help each other. And we always talked about, and everyone talks about, how it takes a village to raise a child. But I think that Akshay and I truly believe it takes an even larger, village to keep a mother up and to keep her going strong. And so if women, not just from India, but around the world, can share with each other what they have gone through, and if there is an intersection and meeting point about these shared experiences, every mother will benefit, every child will benefit, and every family will benefit. And the core of the issue is motherhood is such an incredible experience, and it is talked about so little. And the reason we started it is we wanted to change it, and that's how the Mum's Word was born.
Wow, that was lovely. Any special message from you to people with disabilities and for their caregivers?
I think that all that I can say is that I am truly honored to have been able to share the stories of so many people with complex needs, that they trusted me with it. And what we were able to witness and continue to witness is the inherent resilience of the human spirit to go beyond really insurmountable odds and to be hopeful and to be joyful and to contribute positively to themselves and the world. And that is something that has altered our lives. And I think my pledge to families with disabilities, complex needs, birth defects, and their caregivers is that our pledge is that we will continue to do whatever we can using film and whatever platform that we can to make sure that we go on to build a more inclusive society. And I think that that's really all that I can say.
So, how do you practice inclusion in your daily life?
I listen, I empathize, and I try to be the most authentic person that I can be.
Hey Pavitra, let's do a short rapid fire with 5 short questions. Game for it? Your all-time favorite dish?
Anything with chocolate.
And your one personal favorite movie that you have directed?
That will have to be Rooting for Runa.
Okay. Any commercial movie you would have liked to be part of?
That would have to be Kung Fu Panda, and I'm not too keen in making it. I just wanted to be the panda.
New skill that you learned during the pandemic?
Potty training my toddler.
Okay. One thing about you that Google doesn't know.
Okay, so because of my love for the panda, my loved ones call me Pandesh, and my brother goes as far as to call me Pandumani, and that Google doesn't know.
Thanks a lot, Pavitra. It was such a pleasure to host you. I'm speechless, but can only say, keep giving more such meaningful movies.
Thank you so much, Neeraj. It was wonderful talking to you. And thank you. I'm so honored to be part of the celebration event at the India Inclusion Summit. Thank you so much.
Wheelchair user. I got a master degree in fine arts, Tribhuvan University. I have been participated more than 100 group art exhibition, and I had 4 solo art exhibition, national and international level. In my painting, especially you can see on my painting 2 figure woman and a horse. Horse is a symbol of power and struggle, and woman is a symbol of beauty. I want to create a new style and a new subject. How can I create a different style and different subject? That's my just about my painting. Thank you.
Hi everyone, this is Shakti Swami's brother speaking on behalf of artist M. Swaminathan. Swami hails from Chennai, Tamil Nadu and is an alumnus of Vidyasagar. He has shown amazing proclivity towards geometric shapes and lines right from his childhood and started participating in competitions from the age of 5. He has an amazing coordination with his artwork and gives all his pictures a unique perceptual slant that is a very Swami style. Over the years, Swami extended his range from just casual paintings to outsourcing arts that hang on walls of corporate offices, logos of sports people, calendars, murals, etc. His artworks have appeared on Vishwanath Anand's visiting cards and letterheads. Swami has always been in awe of the Shore temple there, and when it came to choosing an artwork for the competition, it was an absolute no-brainer that he chose the Shore temple, which has always been close to his heart. Swami's goal is now to participate in various competitions and spread his artwork around the world. His artworks have been applauded by professionals around the world, but he has always remained untouched by applause. He wants to give back to the society that has helped him all along the way and wants to help people develop their skills and make them realize their full potential. To sum it up, Swami is a master in his art, yogi in demeanor, and child in street smartness. Thank you all.
Big kudos to our AFI artists Sanjay Rai Bantuava and Swaminathan Manivannan. I now would like to welcome Rob Bernstein. He is an educational therapist specializing in autism spectrum disorders. Rob has been treating children on the autism spectrum for more than 30 years. He consults for numerous organizations and was publicly acclaimed for pioneering table tennis as a means to facilitate social interaction. Rob Bernstein gives hands-on suggestions for handling children's behavioral issues, tantrums, communication and non-communication problems. He is also authored Uniquely Normal, Tapping the Reservoir of Normalcy to Treat Autism. This book has secured 2017 Best Books Award and 2018 IPPY Gold Medal Award in the Psychology category. I would like to extend a welcome Rob Bernstein and invite him to come on stage.
Hi, I'm Rob Bernstein, and I'm here to talk about celebrating inclusion with those on the autism spectrum, the Bernstein Cognitive Method. And I want to start with my mentor, I. Ignacy Goldberg. And he spoke about the evolution of social activism. So it's great having kids be part of the regular population, whether it's art or music or lunch, but he saw this in a broader sphere. He talked about it as a movement, really, going back to the 70s. And he was really pissed off at one thing, and that was when he tried to get tickets to the opera, he had to beg and plead for an aisle seat because he had a wooden leg. He lost his leg in the war. And he just didn't think it was right. He felt the system should accommodate, or as Wolfensberger said, normalize. Wolfensberger had the normalization principle, which basically says just this, that if you have the disabled coming into the norm, to the natural world, to the everyday activities that we all do and appreciate as a whole, then these disabled people should not be embarrassed. It should be seamless. We should have a few seats in the theater for the visually impaired, and the center seats for the visually impaired, or the aisle seats for people who can't bend a leg. I mean, we got the wheelchair thing down, but we're talking about an attitudinal change, a systematic change. So any method that engages the person in the world of everyday activities, it's another way to foster inclusion. And in order to understand the Bernstein Cognitive Method, I need to talk about what it's not. And I think that will help understand what it is. So briefly, we have B.F. Skinner. You might have heard of the Skinner box. And there's a rat in the Skinner box there. He was called the father of behavior modification. And he would take the Skinner box. There's a grid. It's hard to see it under the rat. And the rat would press a lever. And when he presses the lever, he'd get rewarded with a pellet. And that would increase the behavior of pressing the lever. You could see the cartoon. So the definition of a reinforcer is something that increases the frequency of behavior. So he developed this model. It's a reward and punishment model. There's an electric grid there he used for punishment. And there's a joke outside of my university's professor's door where I went to a behavioral school. And he had this joke where one rat is saying to the another. Now you have to picture that there's a graduate student putting the pellets down every time he presses the bar to reinforce his pressing the bar. And he says, have we got this guy trained? Every time we push down the lever, he gives us food. And there's really is some truth in that. So as a general schematic, we had the behavior approach, changes behavior directly. You have the behavior, you have the label, or you measure it, and then you do the reward punishment thing, and you change behavior. I mean, the medical model works great with this, right? You have a diagnosis, label, drug, change. It works. The Bernstein cognitive approach changes what's underlying the behavior. So you have the behavior, you see how the mind works, you change how the mind works, and that in turn changes the behavior. So it's a behavioral approach, it's just a different way of getting there. Now, here's an example just to drive the point home in a simple way, because when this mother's kid came to me with a problem that he was having trouble with, it was a problem with the Pythagorean theorem. He couldn't do it, and after a while I asked him, what's going on? He says he has these interfering thoughts. I said, wow, if we could calm those thoughts down, then what do you think? He said, great. So I got a yoga teacher coming in, calm the thoughts down, work with him for about 20 minutes, give him another example like what we're doing, no problem. But here, this is the point. I asked him what was going on. For 4 years, nobody asked him in the school system what was going on. From 12 to 16, I saw him when he was 16. From 12 to 16 years old, what happened? He couldn't do what he's being asked to do. And I learned this in graduate school. If you give a kid something that is too difficult, apparently, what do? You give him something easier. So he was given something easier and easier and easier until he landed in a class for the intellectually disabled, and he was just screaming, I don't belong in this class. He's trying to get into college and take the college entrance exams. But the point here that, like I said, understanding the underlying cognitive process, how about just asking the kid? That's an example of what I'm talking about. The Bernstein cognitive method uses real life situations to elicit language and behavioral change from within the person. So that's the key here, one of the keys to the method, using real life situations to elicit this kind of change from within. And I want to talk about this girl who would water a plant every time she would come, and one time I put out all the water, no water in it. And she looks at it, apparently thinking, but, and what do I say? I've done this many times, and people have told me, does it need water? What do you think? Should we get water? Why should she use your words? Why don't give her the opportunity to have language surface from within herself? And she's looking at it, I'm saying nothing, and she says, empty. The mother was beside herself. That's one of the, if not the first word, one of the first words she ever said. Empty. It connected her. It connected her affect. It connected her to language. And after that, she really started to talk a lot more. So that's an example of using these real situations to enhance language. So I just want to go back to the book where called Uniquely Normal, but I want to go back to the subtitle, Tapping the Reservoir of Normalcy to Treat Autism. That's what we're talking about. Tapping the reservoir of normalcy, getting that to surface to treat autism. So here's a brief outline of the entire method. It works to understand how a child's mind works, not just the behavior. It observes and sees patterns of behavior which represent what? The underlying thought processes. And then it looks for gaps in the developmental process. And we'll talk more about gaps later. In order to methodically bridge the gap, real situations are set up which will elicit language, relating, communicating, and so forth. So let me give you an example, and we'll play these clips of here's a child with no language in the beginning. There are 3 clips here, and you'll see bits and pieces of each one. In the beginning, there was no language, and then after a few weeks, you'll see the change, and after several months, maybe 10 months, I don't think you could tell the difference between her and a typical kid. So let's have a chance to look at these slides. Turn. What do? Say push it. Tell me, push it. I do it. Push it. Push it. Say push it. Say push it. Let me. You say it. I do it. I do it. Push it. Say push it. Julia, who should open the bottle? You open it, Rob. Who should open the bottle? Julia, who should open the bottle? Who should open the bottle? You open it, Rob. Who should open the bottle?
You by Rob.
Okay, I'm going to open it. Who should open the bottle? Who do you want to open the bottle? Who should open it? Do you want to open it, or should I open it?
I'll open the bottle.
Okay, yeah, okay. Go ahead. You open the bottle.
He's really stuck in here, and he needs stuff.
It's
He needs someone's help.
for what?
For he needs his friends back. He needs his friends.
How about this one?
How about this one needs help?
Why does he need help?
Because he needs to get out and swim now. He needs to swim. Help us. Can you help me, please?
So now I want to talk about Neil. Now, Neil's a kid. Let's talk about his developmental gap. He doesn't recognize something from another person's viewpoint. Boy, is this common. Friend comes over, that friend can only do what Neil wants to do. Very common with autistic kids. So let's see, how do we bridge that gap? So the following situation I used to bridge the gap, I brought him to a local restaurant, and Stacy, the owner, came over and said, "Whoa, I see you have a boot on your foot. I broke my foot a couple of weeks ago and I couldn't figure out a position to sleep in. Could you tell me what position works for you?" He says, "Nothing." Now, what do many of us do in a case like that? Whether you're a teacher, a parent, a therapist, what do we often do? She's asking you a question. Answer her, right? Here's the problem with that. Kids learn what they're taught. And now they're taught to answer the question, but in your mind, answer the question meaningfully. You're not teaching him that. You're just teaching him answer the question. And as you know, these kids are pretty literal. So he's learning to answer. How many times have we been with these autistic or Asperger's kids and they'll answer or respond to you, but it's what they say is totally irrelevant. We teach that. We teach that to these kids because we insist on them to answer the question. So I say nothing. Stacy waits, I don't know, 30 seconds, 40 seconds, walks away. I say to Neil, I say, Stacy thinks you're not friendly. And he says, I don't understand. I didn't say anything. Right? I tell him what everybody here would say for the next 10 or 15 minutes. How, well, I know you didn't say anything, but, she's asking you a question and blah, blah, blah. That's the 10 or 15. He gets it after 15 minutes. And then what do? I call Stacy back. And I don't care, you see, about the answer to that question. I don't care about the behavior. I care that he changes from the inside. I care that he wants to be more respectful or more considerate or more responsive. So she does come back, and I don't remember exactly what it was, but he was responsive. So I'm fine with him thinking about, well, when the next person comes with a question, maybe I don't want that person to feel that I'm not friendly. This may work for him, and I'll be thoughtful and responsive and communicative. So we have these three situations, and they're direct ways to use real-life situations to get results. Two, we use to elicit language, and the other, understanding another person's viewpoint. The whole point is doing this through real-life exercises, rather than just telling the kid what to do. So the Bernstein cognitive method gives the child the skills to recognize a similar situation and transfer his real-life training to successful interaction. Like we're talking about Neil, if he comes across a similar situation like that. In conclusion, the idea of the Bernstein cognitive method for treating autism, it's a matter of understanding the child's thought processes with an attitude of systematic change and societal inclusion. Thank you. You're welcome to contact me during the session, after the session. I'd love to hear from you. Email me, text me, call me. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. Your work is so motivational and inspirational. I'm inspired to read your book, Uniquely Normal. Thanks again. I now would like to welcome an icon who has directed movies like Mr. India, Masoom, Elizabeth, and Bandit Queen. Mr. Shekhar Kapoor, Indian film director, actor, producer, who has won many national and international awards. He is the current president of the Film and Television Institute of India. He has received the Padma Shri Award, the fourth highest civilian award in India. Please welcome Shekhar Kapoor on stage.
Hello, everybody. It's an absolute pleasure for me to have with us one of India's most accomplished directors, one of the most accomplished movie makers of our times, Padma Shri Shekhar Kapoor sir with us here. Sir, thank you so much for taking the time to speak to us at the India Inclusion Summit.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Thank you for having me. Yeah.
So I would like to know, what is your vision for FTII?
If I had the power, and I don't, I would have combined FTII and IIT. World over, when students come out of IIT, companies come to recruit them. And therefore, the students have the potential and the hope that one day they could become Sundar Pichai, they could become the head of Indra Nui, they could have become the head of Pepsi, they could become the head of Google, the head of Microsoft, and they could start their own billion-dollar startups. They could head MIT. And so IIT students are doing that. My vision for FTII is that the world over people will say, the students that come to out of FTII are world class, and we should look at all the students because they have had not only the training but the exposure and the discussion and there's fundamental philosophies behind storytelling. That's one vision. The other vision is that I think a little bit we are out of date at FTII because filmmaking and technology, media and technology are the same business now. You know, even every time the technology is changing so fast, so the way we disseminate our stories and FTII or anything that has to do with media is fundamentally a storytelling enterprise. Everything is a story. Everything is a story. So how you tell your story, in what forms you tell your story is really important. How you tell your own story, how do you edit it, how do you put it out? That's one aspect. How do you disseminate it? That's the other aspect. How do you market it? How do you send it? So then we have to go back to the consumer, to the people that want to listen to your stories. How do they want to listen to it? And that technology governs.
Beautiful. So, sir, tell me one thing. What is the power of movies to drive social change? Do you use movies as a medium of storytelling, which in turn drives change? Or do you start with saying, this is my vision, I hope this is what my movie achieves at a larger scale? Or is it just a very simple, pure medium of storytelling? That's it, and you leave it there. How do you see that?
It's both. And let's not fall into this trap of defining and confining.
Mhm.
It's everything. When I did Bandit Queen, Poolan Devi actually got into the parliament. You know, was she was a woman that was gang raped and low caste and fought back and went back to her uh, the village where she was gang raped and brought every man and young boy out and shot them dead. That was her story. And through the movie, it became so famous that she actually won an election and got into parliament. So movies can change, right? I think that if you are telling your story, because ultimately the story has to come from you, right? So if you have a story that comes from inside you, you just hope that the same story is somewhere appealing to my audiences from inside them. It's not the superficial or not the top layer of plot, right? It's what is happening beyond the plot. It's what we call the subtext. And the subtext, if I did when I did Elizabeth, I met women that had shaved their heads because at the end of the film, the actress shaved her head to say, I'm a virgin. Did that happen in history? No. Did they suddenly mean that, oh, I am Kate Blanchett? No. They recognized in themselves the fundamental subtextual emotions that were flowing through the movie. And therefore, they identified with the movie on a much more subtextual level. And that's what you hope when you're doing a movie. When you're driving from point A to point B, when you're driving in America, you have to take care of the traffic rules. You can't go the other side. You have to stop at the traffic lights. You cannot, go beyond. That's a plot, right? But that's not all you're doing. There are a million things happening from the time that you left and the time that you arrived. There are a million thoughts and a million perceptions and a million things happening in your mind. So in a film, it's the same thing. A movie will give you that million things that will be provoked inside you. That's why some of the best movies in the world are movies that you can see again and again. So if you watch 2001 Space Odyssey, right? I've seen that film 10 times. Each time I've understood it differently because the filmmaker has left those moments, gaps inside the film, as he puts it, and those gaps you fill with the state that you are in. If I've studied Buddhism, I understand it differently. If I'm a student, I understand it differently. If I'm 12 years old, I understand it differently. Then 12-year-old, when I become 60 years old, I see the same film and I understand it differently. It's a different story. That's what movies can do, and that's why they can change things, because you give yourself to them. That's what the fundamental thing about a movie hall. is you walk in and say, I am yours to the movie, you know?
Do you have your personal favorite amongst the movies you made? And do you watch it again and again? There are many people who say, I don't watch my own movies, but do you watch your own movies?
I've never watched all of Mr. India again. I watched scenes from it because people put them out. I've never watched, I only watched Bandit Queen once again because uh, somebody wanted me to do a director statement. So I said, I better see it again. And I came out, and that made it my most personal movie because I came out and I was crying, and everybody said, well, why are you crying? I said, because I'll never make this film again.
Maybe last final question, sir. A lot of the audience at the India Inclusion Summit are people with disabilities, and they are having their own challenges. Any final message to them? How do you think they can deal with their lives? You've mentioned about your own struggles, your own challenges. Any final message for all the audience who are part of the India Inclusion Summit?
It's very easy to say that mental or other disabilities, physical disability, you can see. Mental disability, you are exploring. We're still unable to identify them, and we are tending to define them. But I don't want to say anything that will decry from the efforts of trying to analyze these mental disabilities. But I will say this, that we haven't been able to identify them that carefully. If I had all these mental disabilities and I came through, I'm not saying that we shouldn't keep trying to identify them, but I would say that what we need to do when we examine their perception, if it's a mental disability, we need to contextualize our own perception also. So if it's a mental disability, the perception of that, or the person that we say has a mental disability, cannot be understood unless we understand our perception. It is one perception and trying to understand the other. But what we often do is our perception is fine. Now let's look at the difference in you perceive differently, you express differently. We need to train you to express this way. Now, I'm going to color that because I know that there are a lot of people out there especially under COVID, are having mental challenges, and there's a lot of people trying to help them. So I don't want to take away from their efforts. They're really good efforts, but we need to understand our own sense of schizophrenia when we are completely normal. To know that our schizophrenia, for example, doesn't have to be a constant thing. We all get schizophrenic at times. There are moments of schizophrenia with every artist. This wow, I have an idea is sometimes a schizophrenic moment, but you just comes and goes. So we need to understand ourselves also when we are dealing with mental disability. Physical disabilities, yeah, we can see them, and I have seen people overcoming physical disabilities in a way and leading even more because they need to overcome a disability. I've seen them leading even more fruitful lives than people who, what we say, don't have any perceived physical disabilities because they try harder, because in their attempt to try harder, they are greater achievers than most of us.
Thank you so much, Shikhar sir. I wish you all the best with Pani and all your multiple initiatives and your role at FTI. I wish you all the best, and thank you so much for your time. It's been such an honor to speak to you. Thank you so much, and all the best.
Thank you, Farooq. Thank you very much. Thanks.
Thank you.
You were just mind-blowing, Shekhar sir. What a profound thought you just shared. We all access creativity in the moments of madness. Thank you. Let us now watch the stories of Jyoti, Minal, and Nancy.
Namaste. My name is Jyoti K. Kumar. I have completed diploma in fine arts and also a course in graphic design. And I have good expertise in both hand painting and computer designing. I started drawing at the age of 3 on the walls of my house and papers. And later I drastically developed keen interest towards painting and later bagged many awards and prizes in various competitions which inspired me to do more and more. This became my passion. Initially, When I started painting, I drew beautiful pictures of flowers, abstract art, women, and many others. One day, my friend advised me to express various emotions and feelings of the deaf people in the theater. I drew a painting where I expressed all my emotions and feelings to the world. Various types of sounds, such as firecrackers, bells, and different lightning alarm, are seen around this picture, and those are shed so the deaf cannot hear. My main goal is I want to do more and more as an artist and show my creative ability to this world. I want to share the money earned by selling the paintings to develop and improve the education of deaf children. Thank you.
मैंने ड्राइंग आर्ट को पसंद किया है। ड्राइंग में मैं 8th स्टैंडर्ड से ड्राइंग कर रही हूँ। पहले मैं स्केच बनाती थी, फिर वाटर कलर पेंटिंग बनाती थी। बाद में मैंने 10th स्टैंडर्ड की जो बोर्ड की एग्ज़ाम है वो भी मैंने ड्राइंग सब्जेक्ट के साथ क्लियर किया है। और उसके साथ मैंने कॉलेज में और यूनिवर्सिटी की पढ़ाई में भी इंटर कॉलेजिस्ट कंपटीशन में भी पार्टिसिपेट किया था। तब से मैंने रंगोली करना स्टार्ट किया। ड्राइंग ऐसी कला है जिसमें लैंग्वेजेस की कोई ज़रूरत नहीं है। आप कुछ बिना बोले, कुछ एक्सपीरियंस दिखाए बिना आप सोसाइटी को कुछ जो भी संदेश देना चाहते हैं वो आप दे सकते हैं अपने ड्राइंग के थ्रू। दुनिया के हर एक कोने में आप ड्राइंग के थ्रू अपना संदेश भेज सकते हैं। ड्राइंग सभी के लिए एक समान, सब लोग उसे अच्छी तरह समझ पाते हैं, इसलिए मैंने ड्राइंग को पसंद किया है।
In 2014, I became spinal cord injured after falling from a height. And from then, my body has been paralyzed from the chest level downwards, and I've been wheelchair bound ever since. But with a lot of love and support from my family and an endless list of friends, and above all, God, I've constantly tried to challenge my condition rather than remain challenged by it. From childhood, art has been my biggest hobby. But after being physically challenged, I saw art growing from being just a hobby to being an extension of myself. And through my paintings, either of the two things happen. One is where the art I create reflects me. That is, ideas in my mind comes to life on the canvas for others to see. And two is where the art I create reflects upon myself. That is, my beliefs, my dreams, my vision, whatever it may be, can be framed right in front of my eyes for me to see. And this works like a constant reminder to not give up. Even when most of the other goals tend to get corrected, achieving any of it depends on you not giving up. So my message for you is to not give up in life. Thank you.
Jyoti, Minal, and Ninsi, hats off to your perseverance and strength. No wonder you all are an inspiration to many across the world. Our next speaker is Prithvi Shekhar, an outstanding student in school, a computer science engineer from SRM University, the world champion in deaf tennis 2019, awardee of the Best Sportsman of the Year in 2019, nominated for the Arjun Award in 2020, currently employed at Indian Railways. Oof, you should hear this boy Prithvi's story right from the horse's mouth.
Thank you, leaders. Your achievements are equally awesome. Hello, everyone. I'm Prithvi Chekar. Very glad to be here with you all today. It is an honor to share the stage with other eminent achievers and celebrities like Shekhar Kapoor, Pavitra Chalam, Doc, Dan, and Bob. It was amazing to watch Sahana playing those instruments. Let me introduce myself. I was born with a hearing impairment, but was a happy child playing with my elder brother Praveen. But I did not feel any different except I was the only one wearing a hearing aid machine in my body with wire connecting to my ears. At the age of 4, I started studying in a special school, Balavidyalaya. All was okay, but students were like at me. At the age of 6, I studied in the mainstream school in Balavidya Mandir, but the major thing was I was the only one person wearing a hearing aid machine. So far, friends were so supportive and teachers were so supportive. They did not bother about me, about my machine. As an Indian child, I was attracted into cricket, but I was very good in bowling and fielding. So my parents suggested me to go for an individual game, playing tennis. So that's why I switched from cricket ball to tennis ball. I love the game well, but I want to take some challenges. The hearing aids were inconvenient, sweating and irritation in my ears were so annoying, and it's difficult to listen what other people are talking to me in instruction in a crowd. Most biggest challenge is talking over the phone with friends or parents or anyone else. Time flew by and I learned the techniques which I got to it to learn some those challenges. The major shock was I felt so sad and I cried that I met an accident in my left forearm at the age of 13 where I fell down my tennis court. It took almost 8 months and I underwent 2 surgeries before I came back to the court. But once I'm back to the court, the passion for my tennis game grew drastically. At the age of 15, I was so certain that tennis is my life. I'm also saying that whatever parents ask me to do anything, but I will never stop playing tennis. I will keep continuing playing tennis. Doing BTech or MBA or job, I did not stop playing tennis. I would like to take some good points where I scored 81% in class 12, the biggest milestone for Indian kids. And also, I graduated BTech and MBA with great scores. Awards from tennis game during school and college days definitely boosted my confidence. My most proudest moment was I became the world champion in that category and awarded the best sportsman of the year in 2019. I request you that please consider Indian deaf tennis to support para athletics to do their best for you. Thank you. I now invite my parents to share some few words on the stage.
Namaste. I am Shekhar Lakshmanan, father of Prithvi. I am a retired chemical engineer.
Namaste, I'm Gomati Shekhar, mother of Prithvi, a perfect homemaker and a proud mother of 2 sons, Praveen and Prithvi.
Yeah, Praveen and Prithvi gave us a very good time and got us engaged throughout their life. And now Praveen is married to Sushmita and settled in USA in a good job. And Prithvi is, as we all know, is a world tennis champion. I think as parents we could not have asked for anything better than this.
Yes, I fondly remember proud Praveen supporting Prithvi in all aspects to bring me up so successful in life. I just wanted a good life for Prithvi to be very confident as though he faced many challenges in life. We put him in an individual sport as he would become very confident and successful in life. What a game started as a passion was very successful in his career, which has become his career now. In the beginning, I used to take him for practice daily, noting all his pros and cons, his ups and downs, and discussing with the coach and encouraging him how to do, what not to do, everything. I used to travel locally and outstation for the matches Is it not, Shekhar?
Yeah, I think she was perfectly right. And as responsible parents, we did all that needed to be done for Prithvi especially. And we took care of him and brought him up to speed on all his sporting activities. But at the same time, as typical middle class Indian mindset, we threw a lot of challenges at him. We wanted him to study well first and study engineering and study in science group in his schooling, and then get a job and get settled in life as quickly as possible. That was our mindset. So accordingly, we put him in science group. He gladly accepted it without really knowing what science group is at the time. He passed with flying colors with 81 percentage in plus 2 examination. Then we took him to college, and that time he said, I will do engineering only if I am allowed to play, if I can continue to play. And fortunately, he got into SRM. And then when he finished his BTech MBA in SRM, the biggest challenge was, where do we get a job? Then he said, he was very firm on that I will get a job and go to a job where I am allowed to play tennis without a break. And that's where my wife Uma looked at wherever it is the companies offering sporting activities as a career. Then he landed up in Indian Railways, which is ICF at Chennai, and that's where he is put up now.
Yes, Mr. Shekhar, it was really a very achievement for us. What started as a small game for him as a pastime has become his career now. But each time he surprised us with lot of laurels. He was a darling to his teacher, to his professors, and to his coaches. The day when he won the world champion, it is really alarming. I thought it was his dream come true day. Is it not, Mr. Shekhar?
Yeah, I think I still remember the day when he was declared the world champion. But anyway, we can continue to keep talking. There's not much time left. I would just like to send this message to the parents who have got special children. Let's all remember that special children are really special, and they express their attitudes and their patience in so many different ways. And as parents, we should pick up the signals, guide them in the right path, give them what they really need, and allow them to succeed. Make my words, allow them to succeed. So Prithvi is a classic example now where he has demonstrated that both studies and sports can be done together and done very well together. So if Prithvi can do it, there are thousands and millions of such talented young persons and children who are across the world can really benefit from his case study. And I wish them all a great future ahead.
Yes, it is the most important parental support that is required for these children. We need patience. One day or the other, they will really succeed in life. I'm really proud that Prithvi has become a role model for all these para-athletic children to come shining in their life. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your hearing.
Salute to your hero and his family, Prithvi. I can very well resonate with your journey. I wish you many more successes. Coming to the last segment, the AFI 2020 Digital Art Gallery, which was unveiled on 30th October 2020 by Mr. Vilas Naik, world-renowned speed painter and chairman of India Inclusion Foundation. I hereby invite all of you to experience the Art for Inclusion Digital Gallery. For an inclusive experience of artwork of each artist, please visit the Art for Inclusion page on www.indiainclusionsummit.com. I would like to sign off by thanking each of you and saluting all the caregivers. Thank you, IIS, for giving me an opportunity on this platform. Please do tune in on November 28 at 5 p.m. Indian Standard Time to watch Ability Unlimited. See you there. Once again, Neeraj signing off, and happy IIS celebration to you all.
Do a digital walk through the Art of Inclusion 2020 Exhibition Gallery.
This artwork is of Lord Shiva, painted by Meenal Modia. The second one is a portrait painting of Harry Potter by Nishchay Jain. A beautiful landscape painting by Arun Srinivasan. Following is a painting of Goddess Lakshmi by Sushila Kandasamy and an abstract painting by Ayush Bambani. Here's a beautiful painting by Jyoti K. Kumar. A Horse and Fast Movement by Sanjay Bantaba. A beautiful line work by artist Swaminathan M. And finally, a beautiful embrace in black and white by Nancy Mondley.
मिल भी जाए अगर एक जन्म और फिर जी लूंगा मैं उसे 100 बार आसमां के पार 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 आसमां के पार
Everyone is blessed, each differently than the rest, but we all have the zest to live life to the fullest. No matter our ability, we all can breathe in life in ways people can't imagine, though obstacles are rife. We may not have voices, but we are not unheard. Yes, we may seem trapped, but we are freer than birds. You may say we're cursed, but we're miracles in disguise. And you may try to put us down, but we will always rise.
कुछ सपने बुने आँखों ने कुछ अपने चुने राहों ने कुछ हसरतें बढ़ने लगी कुछ चाहते जगने लगी मंजिलें रह गई खुद ब खुद पीछे और हम उड़ चले आसमां के पार आसमां के पार आसमां के पार